Greetings and welcome back to Daily Driver with myself, Base Driver, here at Paine's Games, where if you enjoy the content, then I invite you to leave a like and comment, share this video, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be informed of my latest content. So today I'm going to further elaborate upon my idealistic checklist of what I would like to do if I were in Hideaki Nishino's shoes, and the focus of this video is software, i.e. where's all the games at? So the overall meme this console generation has been exactly that. Where's all the games? Or perhaps more specifically, where's all the exclusives? Now, I've already talked quite a lot on the channel about corporate hegemony and the impact to the consumer in previous videos, which I invite you to check out for broad context. But despite popular opinion, I'm afraid I'm here to show you that the PS5 is by no means undersubscribed for content. Now, first up, I have some charts for you. Now, here we see depicted each PlayStation console, plotted by total number of global sales at the latest best estimation and their total lifespans. Now, I've tried to keep it as close as possible to date of first launch in whatever final discontinuation, again in whatever region. So this is what Nishino-san is walking into on day one. As we can see right away, each generation up to current has lasted about 12 years or thereabouts, with the PS4 out ahead at 13 years currently, although apparently production is already rolling off in Japan, and I anticipate that global production may end by 2026. That said, there's word about the web that there are developers who still have content planned for PS4 right up to and including 2027, perhaps even beyond. Secondly, we see that obviously the PS2 still rules the roost with over 160 million sales over 12 years, followed by the PS4 in second place with 107.2 million over 13 years so far, and then PS1 taking bronze with 102.49 million over 12 years. Okay, so now we come to the focus points. PS3 is sat there second from bottom with 87.4 million over 11 years, and there's a multitude of reasons for that beyond just the exotic hardware, but that's possibly a story for another video. Suffice to say, 87.4 million is actually an admirable fight back from several years of post-launch desolation, but it reflects rather damningly upon our last place contender, the PS5. Over 5 years it has so far shifted 65.5 million units, and honestly an awful lot of that has to do with PlayStation retreading their failures over the course of the PS3 lifecycle, but it's compounded by the global downturn in gaming, with the dedicated home console market taking quite the hit overall. Now, I've already covered yesterday the hardware aspects of this, so we're here today for the software. So on this next chart you shall see a similar plotting, though this time by each console's total number of exclusive titles published. Now, I'll have to clarify that this chart takes the overall number of titles that originally appeared and saw at least a limited time exclusivity to each of the platforms. There's all sorts of other clarifiers one could apply to these numbers, like was it on PSP or did it eventually come to Xbox, Nintendo, PC platforms, or whatever. For brevity's sake, I'm just keeping it as straightforward as possible. It's really a bit of a moot point regardless, as the key points remain the same whatever the particular sub-criteria. So here we see the PS2 once again at the top with 522 exclusives, PS1 in second with 464, but then we take a huge, and I mean huge, drop on the PS3 with only 177. Now, this definitely wasn't due solely to the hardware, nor PlayStation's generally poor attitudes of the time, though obviously that all played a large role. Rather, this was the start of the downward spiral into that corporate hegemony I've mentioned once or twice over the course of my videos. Because as we see, the PS4 actually saw even fewer exclusives, with another vast drop to just 60 for the second best selling PlayStation console, outranked by the second worst selling PlayStation console by a factor of almost 3. And once again, here today, last place is occupied by the PS5, with 33 exclusives. Just a sad state of affairs, really. Because this is where it gets worse, and I do mean far worse, for let's take a look at the total number of titles released on each platform, regardless of exclusivity. Hold tight. Boom! Lowest seller, least exclusives. But in just 5 years, almost a third of the life cycle of the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 has zoomed to the top of the chart with, at time of recording, 5,790 titles, tracking far and clear ahead of each other PlayStation over their entire respective life cycles. Can we surmise the problem here? Allow me to illustrate. I mean, I don't know about your mainstay AAA franchises, but if you're into simulators, then the PS5 is properly your jam, because there's 278 of them. 278. For context, the PS5 has more cheap, trashy mobile phone port simulators than the total number of exclusives between PlayStation 3, 4 and 5 combined. Go check it out for yourself. As I stated from the start of this PlayStation in 2025 trilogy, this is possibly the greatest obstacle Nishino-san now faces in re-establishing that key word: identity. Indeed, this is not exclusively a PlayStation problem, pun intended, for the lovely Laura Fryer has also made a video similarly assessing Xbox's strategy for 2025, which I strongly suggest anyone who's interested watches, and don't forget to drop her a like and subscribe too. She also came to the same conclusion, that if one strives to become all things to all men, once they achieve it, they implicitly become nothing to anyone. Which is where PlayStation and Xbox both find themselves right now, by chasing the upper echelon niche of gamers who desire the highest resolutions, frame rates and latest post-processing bells and whistles, who frankly are much more likely to build beastly PCs to fulfill that urge, whilst concurrently chasing the fleeting boon of vapid, fast turnaround, high volume, janky reskinned mobile games. These two former giants have entirely lost their identity, becoming essentially the iPhone and Google. I mean, the PlayStation Store may as well be the Apple or Google stores at this point. This oversaturation not only cheapens the brand, but also makes it much harder for games that are any good and worthwhile playing to stand out amongst the vast piles of digital detritus. It actually strongly reminds me of one day standing in a game shop, seeing all the brand new PS2 and Xbox games lining every wall, and one desolate corner filled with PC titles, and some classics like Warcraft, Starcraft, sure. But most of them were those interminably cheap, crappy knockoffs and bought from a Kmart on the way to a kids' party off-brand titles. That was a point at which I knew for a short time at least gaming would definitely be growing on consoles more so than PC. Unfortunately, that game shop is the PlayStation Store now, and the PS5 is the late 90s PC. And so we come to what I would do from day one in Nishino-san's shoes. Whilst the next-gen hardware may be too far gone to change, the correct action towards the overwhelming shovelware epidemic on PlayStation would do a huge amount to start paving the way for a successful launch of said next-gen hardware. Nintendo suffered from a similar issue back in the NES days, and I would advise Nishino-san immediately establish a PlayStation seal of approval of sorts. Essentially what I'm saying is that PlayStation needs to throw the walls back up to its garden and perhaps double the height and sink it a few hundred feet into the ground for good measure. You see, the much championed democratization of gaming whether that be accessibility of consoles and games to a broader consumer base, or much more importantly, how easy it is for literally anyone to pick up some modern software and knot together a rudimentary game, then sling it out on, at this point, pretty much any platform with little or no pushback or seemingly any oversight whatsoever as to the quality of that content, has led to a snowball of shovelware infecting brands and platforms everywhere. Trust me, as a former quality assurance and first-party compliance grunt, one thing that the industry as a whole has tried their absolute best to achieve in the last 2 decades is the complete and utter bypassing of any substantive or credible quality assurance checks. Pardon me. I can guarantee you, in the PS1 and 2 days, 90% of these titles would not get anywhere near release on the platforms. A first-party team would take one look at them and pass without even meeting with developers. However, now, for God's sake, Garten of Banban, Poppy's Playtime, Five Nights at Freddy's, Skibbity Toilet. Now, people who are fans of these can criticise me all they want, but these are objectively not good games in any way. They are what people commonly refer to as brain rot, and there are people who genuinely believe that this is worthwhile content. All of this shovelware, all of it, is literally the lowest common denominator amongst the steaming garbage fire that perpetually insults the player's intelligence. And this is not to mention the endless gamified gambling mechanic games pumped full of microtransactions and season passes, gacha games, live service titles, and on and on. This junk is all available everywhere else anyway, PC, mobile, Soldier Boy consoles, so once again, where is any form of established identity? As I highlighted in yesterday's video, pushing future hardware back into more exotic territories presents a very nice bar of entry for people who wish to program for it, which, though this was a problem for the PS3 generation, I feel it would be of immutable benefit in today's landscape. Not everyone could just slap together some crappy cache sync for a start, which would eliminate a large chunk of the shovelware to begin with. Coupled with that, a much sterner view on what is let through to be published on the platform across the board, and things will soon move in the right direction. Internally, PlayStation really needs to take a step back to implementing the high bar set by the technical requirements checklists for PlayStation 2 and 3, then apply them to PS5 from this April and actually enforce them rigidly. Okay, for a genuinely huge title under certain circumstances, sure, issue a minor conditional waiver here and there, but otherwise, get some rudimentary level of first-party gatekeeping going on. I shouldn't in 2025 have Mini Driver running into softlock crashes repeatedly and super frequently on things like LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Honestly, there's very few games between PlayStation 4 and 5 so far wherein Mini Driver hasn't found countless softlocks, hardlocks and other really dumb defects that wouldn't have occurred so incredibly frequently back in the PS2 days for certain. PlayStation needs to throw those walls up and start curating, nurturing even, a far smaller lineup of far more focused, compelling titles that one can only play on PlayStation. Sure, you could go to Steam or the Play Store or Apple Store and wade through the tides of shovelware, malware, viruses, inappropriate content, thinly veiled gambling games, shams, scams and all the rest. Or you could adopt a dedicated, gated platform where PlayStation cultivates some of the very best developers in the world, working on a 100% video game dedicated platform featuring exciting new exotic technology in an ecosystem unburdened by thousands of forgettable throwaway titles, allowing their title to truly shine both technologically and to a more focused key demographic. I would even go so far as to replace all that shovelware with the whole legacy PlayStation platform strategy I detailed yesterday, whereby hardware-level backwards compatibility would allow players to pop discs from any preceding console into the next-gen PlayStation and play them, a strategy which itself could provide a fantastic opportunity to nurture younger, newer developers for assigning them some of these legacy titles to add the modern graphical scenes and quality of life improvements to, as paid micro DLCs for that hardware emulation, before they move on to creating their own original content for the PlayStation platform. Of course, these legacy titles also bring up the question of the vast number of latent franchises from across the PlayStation history that would not only benefit the platform greatly through new iterations, but also bring back iconic characters that helped initially establish PlayStation's identity. Indeed, many have repeatedly noted that PlayStation has historically been known for creating second-to-none single-player narrative-driven experiences that have frequently pioneered new innovations and pushed the boundaries of video game immersion and interaction, featuring many characters who have gone on to become industry icons in their own rights. Not only this, but in my experience, PlayStation traditionally also had a rich catalogue of couch co-op and party games that saw families, friends, all of my housemates at university gathering round the TV for games of Tony Hawk's, Poi Poi, Dance Dance Revolution, SingStar, Rock Band, Point Blank, Time Crisis, Unreal Tournament, and so on. We were pretty much the embodiment of that generations of play, this is for the players advert in my B-roll. And between the titles, the characters, the games, the experience both solo and shared, it all coalesced to form that which was once universally known as PlayStation's identity. Which neatly brings me all the way back around to Astrobot. We actually do have it now, it arrived early, so we'll be playing it throughout the week as a family, and I'll be streaming it separately myself here on the channel. But in Astro we finally have a bona fide PlayStation mascot, and not just that, for in Astro we have a character that not only represents a potentially very bright, refreshed and refocused future for PlayStation, but also does so through embracing all of what has come before, literally embodying as many of those characters, franchises and icons that built the brand over the past 30 years of PlayStation. Astro is literally an icon of a recommitted future, building upon and learning from the best of their past. This is something Nishino-san should, and absolutely should, really hold on to. Kids love him, adults love him, and Team Asobi have mastercrafted a timeless classic in Astrobot. It even won Game of the Year. So now is the time to capitalise, and capitalise hard. There should be a ton of Astro merch by now, though I am honestly not seeing it. Because of his unique design, Astro could also easily translate to other Sony products as a marketing tool to huge returns, in my humble opinion. We're all pretty certain Astro has another adventure lined up, so if I were Nishino-san right now, I would start winding up the hype mill for a stoic return to PlayStation's core historic identity, all revolving around Astro as a mediator between the old and new, the classic icons and future rising stars, PlayStation's own iconic digital gaming curator. I'm going to give Nishino-san a freebie here, because on April 1st, if he were to say hold a Sony Direct style presentation, and I mean in a large auditorium with a large audience, and he came out to a darkened stage with a single spotlight and said these words: "Ladies and gentlemen, gamers, PlayStation fans young and old, I know things have seemed rough in recent times, but I'm here to tell you that things are about to change. In fact, I'm not here on my own, I brought a couple of friends to help me really make a point. So please welcome them." Behind Nishino-san, centre stage, a second spotlight appears, revealing Kevin Butler, Senior VP of Making PlayStation Great Again. Signature coffee cup in hand, world's greatest SVP. Well, thank you Nishino. It's so great to be here. I brought a few friends along for this prestigious event, and with a pop, Astro appears. Kevin then begins to regale the audience with one of his trademark rousing speeches, relaying that making great strides forward can only succeed through expecting, learning from, and building upon what came before. As Kevin's speech proceeds, Astro introduced historic and modern icons one by one: Ratchet & Clank, Kratos, Crash Bandicoot, 7 Hellgan, Rayman, Sackboy, Solid Snake, Cloud Strife, Dr. Dan and Dr. Don, and so on, all standing shoulder to shoulder, side by side, forming a huge arrowhead, with Kevin and Nishino-san at the tip, building to an inspiring crescendo, with Kevin's finishing line. Because this is our PlayStation declaration. Past, present, future. This is for the gamers. Crowd loses their cookies, internet blows up. Nishino-san then proceeds to announce measures similar to those I have outlined in the past 3 videos, and PlayStation's reputation takes an instant boost amongst its core demographic. But then it comes down to delivering, which they absolutely must do with the forthcoming generation, or face being absorbed into the indistinct homogeneous glob of digital platforming, just like Xbox, Steam, Apple Store, and the Play Store. Unfortunately, a severe obstacle to turning this all around could potentially be seen in Herman Hulst, given that, as I mentioned, he is retaining his main role as head of first parties. Now, though I doubt his to-the-hilt backing of gaming's biggest ever failure to date, Concord, will ever be forgotten, honestly, I think it should probably follow him for the rest of his career, such as that may last. But it is somewhat puzzling that he would remain in such a position when Concord was such an irrevocably bad train wreck. With the incredibly ill-advised live service push as a whole hitting a brick wall of reality, and frankly, PlayStation first-party studios not looking quite so hot right now. Now, sure, he does have a history with Guerrilla Games arguably at their peak, but beyond that, in his time as head of first parties, how successful has he really been? I can only hope that the reshuffle leaves Nishino-san cautious of giving Hulst too much autonomy. Not an ideal situation for any new CEO to be in, but the two have worked together, so one can hope that Nishino-san can take the lead and guide Hulst in the right direction. Perhaps that is even how Hulst works best, when there are others to curb his enthusiasm and keep things on track overall. The breaking news of PlayStation cancelling seemingly very high-profile live service games at Bluepoint and Bend Studios, including a God of War game which I'm fairly certain I've heard David Jaffe allude to in one of his previous videos, so that would hold some credence, is certainly very positive news indeed for those of us out here who would like to see Nishino-san go in hard and exact fast judgments, cutting the chaff left and right, extracting the cultural vandals and activists, and cauterizing the financial wounds before PlayStation bleeds out. So, to summarize the software side of things, if I were Nishino-san, I would 1. Throw the walls back up, reassert first-party standards and requirements to gatekeep in a big way. 2. Review all content and publishing contracts for the PlayStation platform, removing as much shovelware as possible, as quickly as possible. 3. Invest in the legacy PlayStation platform strategy that I have outlined through my videos. 4. Stop buying so many developers and leaving them to rot within the PlayStation Studio system. Instead, nurture them and work with them through exclusivity contracts. Traditionally, once a first party buys any studio, the best developers have already left before the ink is dry. And 5. Re-establish the PlayStation identity by making it exclusive, by making it compelling, by making it a little bit exotic, by making it the very best platform for the best developers to get their games seen above the crowd, offering a uniquely performative experience in what has become a grey and non-distinct gaming landscape filled with throwaway content. Well, there you have it. Over 3 videos I've explained just some of the things I would like to see from the new Nishino-led PlayStation. There's lots more, of course, like should they scale the PS4 down in size further and such, but perhaps I might talk about that further in one of my live streams, as I do have some changes afoot here on the channel. Over the past couple of weeks I have prepared a scripted daily video, Daily Driver, and honestly I'm quite surprised by the response, having hit way over 200 views across all of them to date so far. So a huge thanks to all of you who have tuned in, and if you haven't already then please do consider subscribing. that this wasn't strictly the intention of the channel, to be honest. I was more intending to play through some games and offer thoughts and opinions, bits of news, etc. during the course of gameplay. Now, though the daily drivers have been doing pretty well, I honestly feel it is better if I get back to the original intent of the channel, because A, the workload to produce a daily scripted video is somewhat more than I had originally intended. I do have other responsibilities after all. And B, I feel my scripted content would benefit greatly from far less volume with more time focused on each video. Chasing the latest news daily is for younger folk than myself, and honestly they do it much better, so instead Daily Driver shall become what I originally intended it to be. A daily video game livestream, and my scripted news, review, gaming history or deep dive videos shall become more occasional, though still regular and frequent. I'm not going to set a specific schedule for these, rather I shall pursue something I really feel merits making a scripted video and put something together as such a subject arises. So, less scripted videos, but more detail, more in depth and better quality, hopefully. And hey, it has been a fantastic first fortnight here at Paine's Games. I can't really relay my appreciation enough to all of you who have watched and supported me through the teething problems, and of course #blame Masterfast Theatre. But I hope the forthcoming minor changes are to all of your likings, and I look forward to perhaps catching up with some of you on my live streams. For now though, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did, do please leave a like and comment. If not, leave a dislike. Feel free to share on social media, and most of all, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be informed of my next video. This has been Bass Driver from Paine's Games. Thanks again for listening, take care out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.